Hey everybody, this is 4 Ice Counters coming to you with a standard best of 3 deck and gameplay video outside of Atlanta, and so around November of last year, sort of locked in on Azorius AURAS as a deck that I thought was pretty affordable. A lot of gameplay and decision making that I tend to gravitate towards. I think in some ways I'm just always chasing the ghost of Dimir Rogues. That was a deck that was very popular in Standard around the time I got back into Magic in the fall of 2020, or maybe it was 2021, one of those years. I stepped away from the game for 15, 20 years. The last time I played Magic, I had cards like Snuff Out and Counterspell 7th edition or whatever in like a shoebox in my garage. Back to Magic, Paper Magic, and Arena. I find myself gravitating towards blue-white control and decks where, as a budget player, I usually am just like, okay, if I have the mana base, what's something I could play? So in terms of wildcard spending, I typically focus my rare wildcard spending on things like Verge when that was released, Anchorage when that was released, Seachrome Coast, Fountain Port. And then from there, I would never minded playing commons and uncommons and sort of looking for rares as I could, whether it was through quick drafts or accumulation. I don't really I don't mind spending money on my hobbies, but the Standard, especially even with a 3-year rotation, it's just subject to change so often that I hesitate to overinvest in cards when then I could turn around and now I've got to buy a whole new deck. So this is the deck you can see here, it's AURAS version 13. Essentially what that means is I've been playing with versions of this deck since about November. This is the version of the deck that I took to SCG Con Atlanta. Finished 6 and 5. That was my first time playing in any kind of tournament that wasn't just like, a 3 or 4 round locals. I was 1 win away from day 2. Pretty frustrated in my last match. A Simic Terror deck that had a pretty transformative sideboard plan that included like a mentor card, the 3-drop mentor that has prowess and creates tokens. So I'm really proud of this deck that I brought. Some of the tech choices I really like. I like Mockingbird a lot, especially when you're up against aggro. Mockingbird is a great card they play a 1-drop. Now you play a 1-drop that basically creates, a little bit of a standoff. They want to, play a lizard or a haste creature or a Llanowar Elves, and now all of a sudden you have one too. Altered by Ghosts is like a card people love to hate or hate to love. I'm a fan of the card. I think it draws out removal. I think especially if it can eat a token or something without an ETB trigger, it's worth running because of the synergies of the deck. Spellbook Vendor is one of my spicy cards. Not a lot of people run this card or even know what it does. Usually my opponent has to read it. Vigilance is great, as well as constant every turn generating aura. So if you can be stacking Spellbook Vendor tokens, when you have Scavenger on the field, when you have Tracker on the field, just good value to be had there. And that token allows you to attack whenever the creature attacks you, scry 1, which can help you filter through your deck. This was the deck I ran weekend of SCG Con Atlanta to a 6 and 5 finish. I was really proud of that result and wish I had made day 2. So here we are, nearly March. This is the version of the deck I'm running currently. I made a few changes. Wanted to and continue to want to see what kind of impact a card like Storm Chaser's Talent can have in a deck like this. It's not its ideal home, but when you pair it with a couple copies of This Town Ain't Big Enough, when you have, say, turn 1 Scavenger into turn 2 Chaser's Talent, there's good value there. The biggest change I made is I've taken Entity Tracker out of the deck. It's such a target for removal. Every time I play it on turn 3 or turn 4, it feels bad and it gets blown up by like a cut down. I have to take a turn off. I'm going with 4 copies of Stock Up. Cards getting expensive in TCG, things like $3 or $4 a copy, which is expensive for an uncommon. It's just an incredibly powerful card. If you can play this on turn 3 when your opponent is tapped out, you're usually setting yourself up for success in turns 4 and 5. Maybe you're, on turn 3, you're out of lands. Maybe you need 2 lands to go with the spells that are in your hand. Maybe you need 1 spell and a counter spell, or you need, 2 impactful cards for later turns. I just think Stock Up is an awesome card. I'm really glad to see Wizards printing spells like this. Even though, obviously if it was instant speed, it might be broken. Sorcery speed is worth it in terms of at least the testing I've done. You'll see the mana base hasn't really changed. most of the decks I run in standard best of 3 will have some version of this mana base. Cut the demolition field. I don't mind dealing with creature lands and fountain ports, and not many people are running Murex. And then in the sideboard, I threw a copy of Spell Pierce in there that came out in Aether Drift or came back to standard. It's hit or miss. There's a lot of domain decks running around, so whether Cavern of Souls is in play, which sort of cancels out your negates and your Spell Pierce, or they've just, ramped really quickly, this card can sort of be dead in hand, but there are definitely times that it completely squashes the opponent's momentum. Another card I'm testing, I'm not confident it will stay in the deck. I'm interested in this Gallant Strike card. I think the 2-mana cycling is a nice ability tacked on to, essentially half of a Destroy Evil, right? Destroy Evil has destroy target creature toughness 4 greater, destroy target enchantment. Obviously, these are great cards for domain. Gallant Strike, what I found is I think I like this card against green. Mildred, Creature of the Schism, any of the demons that either, Archfiend or the Demon Token. There's just a lot of value that you can get from this card. And that's also where obviously a card like Ride's End is very valuable, especially when you only pay 2 mana for it. The challenge with Ride's End is cards with Vigilance, or if opponent drops a card with good ETB trigger and doesn't choose to attack for a turn or two. Like Shieldred is actually a card that a lot of people will play and then not attack with. So this card gets more expensive in that scenario. Beyond that, pretty standard side deck. So I'm going to take this version 13 into the standard ladder, play a match with it and kind of talk through my decision points. I think right now I'm somewhere in like Diamond 3. So hopefully we'll get a competitive match and I'll have a chance to show off what the deck is capable of, or I might get run over. We'll see what happens. Okay, so opponent has taken a mulligan. I'm on the draw. It's a little bit of a slow hand. I like stock up. Land is fine. I think I'm going to keep this. For better or worse, I tend to keep a lot of hands because I think keeping hands allows me to kind of work through mistakes with are these cards actually good together? Are they not? So here's a great example. Heartfire Hero, that'd be a great target for Mockingbird, but I think turn 1 I want to just go ahead and get Scavenger out. I assume my opponent's going to either play another creature or play some kind of, monstrous rage. They're going to do something. Yep. And that's why I didn't copy it with the Mockingbird is, against mono red or Gruul, trying to chump block is a pretty risky gamble when their creature now has trample and a bunch of counters. So I think for right now what I'm going to do is get I'm going to get the Mockingbird out as a copy of Scavenger. I think what I want to do is load up for I want to play Hall Creeper next turn, and that'll be a nice opportunity to put a bunch of counters on my creatures and just try and build my defenses. I'm going to let them attack again. They might have another. Nope. So let's see what's coming. Another Heartfire Hero. That's fine. Slick Show Off. Also fine. Okay, so let's do this. We know they're going to come in for a big attack. So I think what I need to do is kind of gum up the ground. So we're going to not attack. Now, when I talk about Dimir Rogues as a deck I really like, what I like about it is that tempo component. I like that it can be aggressive, especially against a slower deck. And I also really like that it can be more of a defensive deck. Now, they might have something in hand that blows me out, but I'm at the point now where I can't take too many turns off. So what we'll do is okay, so let's do this. I think they have to have something. I'm gonna, if we have to go to game 2, that's fine. I'm gonna, I want to see more of their deck. That's what I love about best of 3, and I'm a little flooded here. 6 lands in my top 11 cards. That's okay. So let's do this. Let's go to combat first. Attack with Hall Creeper. I'm going to draw a card. That's always... Hall Creeper is a card that not a lot of folks play. Love it in an Azorius Auras type deck or an Enchantments type deck. I always choose to draw a card first. I used to put counters, and what I learned with doing that was that, unfortunately, the card could just get blown up before you draw a card, and really the value... Wowzer. Okay. Well, at least we're going to get rid of 3 lands we would have drawn. So let's do this. So the value of the scavengers is now we have this is as good as it's going to get. They're either going to blow us out and we'll go to game 2, or we have a fighting chance, which is great. Leyline of Residence does very little. They can attack. They're going to lose their creatures. So here we go. Maybe we can turn the corner. So let's get... What do we need to eat? I feel like we need to eat... I'm not worried about the show-off with my Flying Scavenger. I need to eat this Heartfire Hero because it's going to deal me damage when it dies. So let's do this. This is a favorite play because Scavenger can't be blocked. Let's get rid of the token. And actually, I'm going to do this because I want as much lifelink as I can possibly get. And we still have plenty of land. Yeah. See, so that is... I want to go back because, again, I'm not like... I'm not going to the Hall of Fame. I'm just a casual Magic player. But I think against card decks like Gruul and Mono Red, there's the psychological part of the game, in at least standard best of 3 right now, is you immediately feel like you're on the defensive and on the back foot. And so if you're going to run a deck like mine, low curve, lots of 1 and 2 drops, no sweepers, no real way to like catch up. You really have to race the opponent. That's a losing proposition against Gruul. It's a better deck at racing. I mean, it's these pump spells, leyline. These are the kinds of decks that can win a Pro Tour. You know, that could honestly win a world championship. So when you're playing a deck like mine, which is admittedly a bit more of a budget build, there are some rare cards, don't get me wrong, you know, but you have to be really thoughtful about when to attack, when to hold back, and play to the strengths of the deck. So what I mean by that is that Silent Hall Creeper can't be blocked. So it's almost like a ticking time bomb. So that turn that I was able to eat the hero, gain lifelink, pump it 3 times, swing in, and nearly even out our life total, that doesn't happen every game, but you have to give yourself the chance for that to happen. So if I'm just attacking every turn with all my creatures, I'm going to lose. That deck is going to beat me on pure, racing value. I'm trying to think of what I want to do here. I want cheap interaction. I like Mockingbird again because I can just copy the creatures for very cheap. Got the Leyline, but I'm not sure I want to focus on that. I think I like this build. Sometimes what I'll do is maybe I like a flash threat. So here's how I usually side. I'm going to drop. They're going to try and kill more of my creatures, so I typically drop some of the AURAS package. I'm going to drop a copy of Stock Up, and this is just too expensive. I don't want to see too many of those in my cards in my hand too soon. So we'll see how this goes. I was on the draw in game 1, and we took it down. Let's see what happens in game 2. It's another good hand, 3 lands, good curve. My goal would be to copy whatever they play turn 1 with Mockingbird, maybe shelter by, poke in for damage with lifelink turn 2. Turn 3, play the vendor, put the token on the Mockingbird, attack again with lifelink, and go from there. This is, against Gruul, against Leyline, you gotta play your cards. Oh, no turn 1, which means they probably want to kill the first thing I play, which is, this plays perfectly into our strategy. We're not going to play anything. Go ahead, buddy. You want to burst lightning, you want to, whatever it is you think you're going to do. Wow. The Gruul deck has no turns play 1 or turn 1 or turn 2. So I think they have at least 1 removal spell. So what I want to do here, I think I'm just going to, this plays to my advantage. This is where I think of Dimir Rogues. Like, you want to play lands and you want to land go. That's a good card. But now you're tapped out. I'm going to eat it. Ooh, that's even better. I was going to eat it one way. Let's do this. I want to bait out a removal spell. And I have the Mockingbird to copy the Nemesis. Is that what I want to do? Yeah, because if they kill it, let's do that. You have to remember with Mockingbird is any strategy that kills a creature, and I actually don't want to attack. I want them to, you can come attack me. That's fine. No, it's fine. Play a pump spell. Do whatever you want to do. Because if they pump it, the damage I deal it won't be enough to kill it, depending on what they play. So this is also fine. So I want them to believe I don't have a smite. If I had it, they probably assume I would have used it. So what I want to do right now, I want smite up. So let's do this. Let's do vendor. I want to draw. If they have removal, I want them to play it. I need them to, because I don't want to put. I don't want to target a creature with Shelter by Ghost to have it get blown up. So let's do this. I want to pump my ground guy, especially Vigilance. So see, yeah, okay, shocking. Yep, that's fine. So maybe we could do 2 for 1. I don't know what kind of pump spells they might have, but let's attack the Nemesis. Okay, this is good. They're going to attack all. I want to do this. Deals 3 damage. No, let's do this. Let's line up a block. Let's see what happens. Pump spell. Removal. What's the plan? I mean, I got to play my cards. If they've got me beat, they've got me beat. Yep, Snakeskin Veil's a good one. That's a good one. Don't play the turn inside out on your Ember Challenger. Oh, I see. Smart. I lose. Well, we got to play our cards. So let's do this. Let's do this. Probably going to game 3, which is fine. I need to get rid of this guy because it's going to deal me direct damage. Now, if they want to kill me, maybe I'll at least get some life. What's the play? Damn. Probably misplayed somewhere. I should have... Okay, well, that's... Okay, we'll go to game 3. Y2J problem. Alright, so that was a pretty poor showing. Knowing I have not just pump spells, but Veil... I needed to probably take the Nemesis out the turn it was played. I took too much damage from the Nemesis for doing something about it. That's just a misplay on my part. I think we'll have better luck if we run that back. So let's do this. Let's do one more Sheltered and maybe... I actually didn't like having... The Mockingbird opening hand when they didn't play a creature was pretty rough. So let's try this build for game 3. I'll be on the play. I don't need a ton in my hand. I just maybe a Scavenger and a Talents, or a Smite and a turn 2 creature. Just something to feel pretty good. Okay, so we've got turn 1 Scavenger, turn 2 Creeper, pump the Scout. Yeah, we got to try it. This is, again, like, some people might see this and be like, not enough removal, not enough this, not enough that. My instinct is typically to... I mulligan when it feels right, and otherwise I will keep hands that other players might not, because I want to see how I can get myself out of situations. To me, that's the fun of this game. It's, when I'm playing standard best of 3 on the ladder, I'm okay. This is very good for us. Let's do this. We're gonna build up our board before they get a chance. Now, they have Leyline, so what? They'll pay a 1-drop and copy the spell they use. Okay. 2 1-drops. That's fine. So let's do this. Let's attack and draw a card. See, I always choose draw a card first because now I've got my 3rd land. That's very helpful. Let's do second all creeper, leave up Smite. I think that's better than Scavenger. I think trying to build the board right now might be a little slow with Leyline out there. So and if they've got a pump spell, that's fine. Get it out of your hand. One of the ways you can beat Gruul is to just get them to dump their hand. That's fine. Yep. Big turn. 8-9 damage or whatever. And now it's going to deal 7, but it doesn't get to deal that damage because it doesn't die, it's exiled. Smite is put Smite in your deck. If you're going to locals, pick up some copies. They're like 50 cents a copy. Such a good card against the show off, because that the defense doesn't get pumped when you play show off. And now here we're going to do... Okay, so they've got something. Maybe a pump spell. Maybe a removal spell. Let's do this before we commit more to the board. we'll commit to the board in the second main phase. One of the advantages of 2 Hall Creepers is when you have to use the third ability of Hall Creeper, you can target Hall Creeper to reset the choices, which is just such a okay, this is great. We've got... I'm going to leave Shard Rage's rescue up. Oh, I can't... I'm an idiot. I can't leave the rescue up because I don't have the... Never mind. Oh, goodness. Okay, I think we're in a good spot here. For them to use Questing Druid... They've got 4 mana, but we've got 2 creatures that can't be blocked. That's... Yep. Empty your hand, friend. That's fine. Okay, is this... Are we just going to win here? So we do Talent that pumps both. That's 10 damage. Talent. And then do Mage Rescue. We'll do another 1, 2, 3. I think I got 13 damage. So let's do this. I have enough creatures now that I'm not as worried about protecting. Let's just go big. And the Scry one's really helpful. We'll just keep both rescues up because everything they do to target is going to be... So watch this. Creature becomes a copy. And I've now reset the Hall Creeper. I think they're going to go ahead and concede here. I see a world where they win. We'll line up blockers just in... Our Hall Creepers are enough to take the match, so we have to... What, they got like Monstrous Rage or something? Burn Inside Out. How much damage could they possibly do? They have 1 card in hand. So that's 2, 3, 4... 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. I think the most they can do is 17 damage, which is fine. Let's just go ahead and... Whatever they're going to do, we're going to block some of it. I'm not too worried about it. I don't think they're dealing 20 damage in 1 turn. I could be wrong. Yep. So that's 6 damage on top of whatever they do. Yep, we got this. Not enough. Good game. All right. So that is the power of blue-white enchantments. Go back to the battlefield. Opponent's hand was not fantastic. Had the leyline. I think it was a tap land turn. Yeah, they had the leyline in their opening hand, and then they had a tap land turn 1, which is like maybe the worst version of events for them. And then again, like in terms of the tempo advantage is they can't be blocked. So I think a lot of times the Gruul decks are just relying on chump blocking and maybe pumping to sort of like turn the tables. But when you can't block my creature, and when all your kill spells like, deal 5 damage if it's white or blue, good luck, Ethereal Armor is such a great card in this deck. It doesn't have a ton of homes in Standard. This is, the blue-white Auras deck is probably the most... Oh, and we got an achievement. Let's go see what that was, and we'll talk about the deck for a minute before we wrap up. What do we get today? Color Mastery. Green. Put 300 plus 1 counters on cards. Oh, boy. Fantastic. Yeah, I play a lot of Auras. Put a lot of 1/1 counters on my cards. So, talking through the deck choices here for a minute before we wrap up. Scavenger is a must play. Don't play this deck if you're not willing to play Scavenger. I personally believe Hall Creeper is the best 2-drop. Because it can't be blocked, that card just sneaks up on people, like we saw there in Game 3. Very easily could have lost that match. One match against Gruul Mice is not, be-all, end-all on why Auras or enchantments, whatever you want to call it, is a must-play deck. It's not. It's tier 2 at best, if not tier 3. But it has game against everybody the same way that Dimir Rogue's deck did several seasons ago, because you have card draw. You have card advantage throughout the deck. You have cheap interaction, the way Into the Story would cost less at a certain point with certain threshold with cards in graveyard. This Town and Ride's End are not just cards for Domain. They're not just cards for Beanstalk. Any tempo-y deck should consider running at least a few copies. You don't need to see it in your opening hand, but against most decks, there will be value in cards like this, especially if you're bouncing your talent or bouncing. Something I do a lot actually with this town is when an opponent goes to sweep the board or target some of my target Sheltered by Ghost with like a Terrace under, I'll just take my Sheltered by Ghost and my Storm Chaser or whatever back. That is a terrible experience for your opponent when they think they're going to when they think they're going to knock out your Sheltered and get their ETB creature back, and all of a sudden they get their creature back, but you still have Sheltered, you still have your hand is bigger than it was before. That tempo advantage kind of disappears. In terms of the sideboard, I think there's plenty of room to tinker. My strong opinion is you need Smite, three or four copies against the aggressive decks. That's just a card that you can't leave home without. If you want to stand a chance against the aggro decks, having a card that deals 3 damage and exiles is pretty critical. I think the counter spells, the negates, the spell pierce, are typically valuable for me against some of the mid-range decks. There's not a ton of control running around that I know there was a high-performing control deck at the PT, but Destroy Evil, don't leave home without it against Domain. Rest in Peace, don't leave home without it against any deck that's using Collect Evidence, any deck that is relying, the Oculus decks. And then Tidebinder's that's another one of these cards that people love to hate, but the reality is it can swing a lot of matches. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. I appreciate you taking the time to stop by. If you're interested in playing Auras yourself or want to talk through sideboarding strategies, deck tech, what have you, feel free to leave a comment. Have a great day. Bye.